Best.Podcast.Ever is sponsored by the Gertsburg Law Firm, a full-service business law firm in Cleveland and Chagrin Falls that's changing the way businesses retain their attorneys. Go to gertsburglaw.com to learn more. While you're there, check out CoverMySix, a complete legal audit of the 6 areas that most often create or prevent business lawsuits and government investigations. Go to CoverMySix.com to learn how we keep you safe. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to listen to the best podcast ever recorded.
But I would say every time you experience a disappointment professionally or even personally, how you choose to react to it, how you choose to get back up is going to be a better arbiter of where you sort of end up down the road.
Hey folks, Alex Gertsburg here. Mine will be the only voice you hear for the next few minutes because our good friend Molly Gebler is once again absent. She is absent with leave, however, because she is, as you listen to, well, I guess not as you listen to this, but at the time that we recorded the Sharon Tourek episode that you're about to hear, Molly was at opening day at Progressive Field watching the Indians beat whoever it was. I can't remember. I know they won that day, and Molly was there and not here, and that's okay. We had a really good interview of Sharon Tourek, and we'll get to that in a second. For now, I will tell you that Sharon is an attorney. She runs a law firm called Tourek Law. She practices in intellectual property, copyright, content protection, licensing of creative content. She represents a lot of advertising and marketing agencies, but she also represents businesses. And we talked a lot about that, about protecting your intellectual property from trademarks to copyrights to non-disclosure agreements, things like that. It was a really good conversation, and I think you'll enjoy it. We talked about a lot of other things too, but Sharon is, in addition to being an attorney and the head of her own law firm, she has a blog at it's called Legal and Creative, and her law firm is at legalandcreative.com. So you're going to want to go there and check her out. She also has a podcast of her own. It's called the Innovative Agency Podcast. And she is a board member at Jumpstart and at the National Small Business Association, at the Greater Cleveland Partnership. So she pretty much doesn't sleep. She is a busy gal, and it was a good conversation. I hope you enjoy it. It got me to thinking that since I have a few minutes here, and Molly's not here, so I'm just going to talk to myself, which is what I usually do anyway. The creativity conversations that Sharon and I had really got me to thinking about creating works, taking things from idea to whether it's a product or a book or a work of art or a sculpture or whatever. Getting ideas out of your mind is something that I've been paying a lot of attention to lately because I've been working on a book. I've been chipping away at it really pretty intensively now for the last couple of months, ever since I went down to Argentina with my girlfriend in December. And it's coming along. I'm not going to talk about what I'm writing. I will only tell you that it is something that has given me tremendous joy over the last 3 months. So the reason I think it's important enough to talk about for a few minutes is because I don't know that all that many of us humans walking around, going about our busy day-to-day lives, directing our attention to our children and our employees and our siblings and our parents and everyone but ourselves, really thinks about the things that give them joy and doing those things and making time for those things and then protecting that time. I don't think that people do that enough. And so I thought that it was worth taking a few minutes now to talk about, but in a slightly methodical way. And here's what I mean by that. A few years ago, I joined this program called Strategic Coach. And one of the first things we did at Coach was, so Coach is a business entrepreneurial coaching program. You meet 4 times a year and you do some pretty intensive thinking exercises. And it has really helped change the way I think about my business and my time. And specifically, one of the first things that we did over there, probably one of the most meaningful things that I've ever done in my entire life, was this thing called an activity inventory. And what we did was we made a spreadsheet. And in the spreadsheet, we identified all the things that we did in a 2-week period. Well, that was the homework anyway. So you had to write down, you had to just keep track of everything you did for 2 weeks. And you made this list. And 2 weeks later, you look at the list and you remove all the duplicates, and then you remove all the personal hygiene stuff, and you cross out sleep. And what you're left with, hopefully, are, I don't know, anywhere from 20 to 40 discrete, independent tasks, all of which are different from each other, and most of which probably have something to do with work, particularly for us because we were all business owners. And so you then take that list and you draw, or if you're in a spreadsheet, you make 3 columns to the right of that list, so that the first column was for how much money this thing makes you. Is it something that is very profitable, or is it something that is a complete waste of time because it doesn't make you any money, at least from a business standpoint? And then you had to rate it from 1 to 4, 4 being this task that I do makes me a ton of money, and 1 being this task makes me no money at all. It's a waste of my time. And then the second column was a unique ability column, meaning you had to rate on a scale of 1 to 4 whether you were uniquely capable at this task, meaning you did it better than anyone else you know, almost anyone else you know. That's a 4. Or is it something that you're excellent at, which is a 3, something that you are good at or competent at, which is a 2, and 1 is incompetent. So uniquely capable, excellent, competent, incompetent. That's the second column. And then the third column is, how much joy does this thing give you? How much do you look forward to doing this? A 4 is, I can't wait to do this. I'm really looking forward to it. This is going to be awesome. And a 1 is like, ugh, I gotta do this. I've got impending doom. Just thinking about this, it makes me nauseous to even think about doing this. And then a 2 and a 3 is like, I guess I got to do it. Or a 3 would be like, yeah, I'm somewhat excited to do this, right? And then what you're supposed to do at the end of this exercise is then sort all of those activities so that at the top of your list is all the activities where you have all 4s. So those are things that you're uniquely capable of doing better than anyone else, things that make you a bunch of money, and things that you can't wait to do because they bring you so much joy. And then everything below there that isn't all 4s, the goal is to either delegate or eliminate those things so that most of how you spend your day, particularly your focus days, or maybe even your free days, but really your focus days, are spent doing things that you're great at, that make you a bunch of money, and that you are really excited about doing. Things that you do that have a bunch of 1s in those columns, or 1s and 2s, you got to get rid of those. You got to get them out of your life. They just clutter up your day. And they take precious time that you never get back away from things that do bring you joy and that do make you money and that you're really good at. So when I did this exercise, it was like a light bulb blowing up over my head. It was like a real epiphany that the things that I do that I'm really good at and that make me a lot of money and that I am really excited about, they all relate to creativity, to generating ideas, to implementing ideas, written communication, oral communication, public speaking, motivating my staff here, interacting with my team, doing one-on-ones with them. Those are the things that I thought and felt and still believe are all fours for me. And then sure enough, over the next 2-3 years, I have fairly diligently, although not completely successfully, it is definitely a marathon exercise, tried to eliminate or delegate everything that isn't all fours, starting with the things that were all ones or ones and twos. And that definitely involves getting assistants and staff members to my firm and lawyers who are, there's things about practicing law for me that I haven't enjoyed since I was a first or second year lawyer. Back then, I loved writing research memos and doing document reviews and writing briefs. 19 years later, those things, there are people who love doing them, and those are the people doing them here at this law firm. And that gives us the added bonus of making those things be of a higher quality than they might be by someone who just doesn't enjoy doing it. And it also, by the way, from a business architecture standpoint, ensures that your people are happy about what they're doing, that they are doing things that they're looking forward to doing. That's if you structure your firm or your company according to the unique ability concept. But it's the joy of all of those other things in your life and in my life that exercise really brought to the surface for me. Writing my book, for me, gives me immense joy. And I am very selfish about creating time and protecting it in order to write my book. I don't really care as much about the final product as much as I do about the creation itself. And there's just, for me personally, there's something about generating the idea for what I'm about to write and then getting it out of my head and then putting it on paper and wordsmithing it, editing it, although I'm pushing that off until later. But there's something about it. There's something about it that really gets me incredibly excited and makes me really look forward to this thing that I'm going to do. And then once I'm in it, I get into that flow and I put the headphones in and I'm at the coffee shop or at my kitchen table and I'm writing this thing, and then 2 hours will go by and I in the blink of an eye and I didn't realize it. And then I look back and there's 10, 15, 20 solid pages of just really great stream of consciousness there. Part of the reason that I'm talking about it now is because I don't think I'm alone. In fact, I know that I'm not alone. I know that, well, if we're having a month this month like we did last month, and there's at least there's over 1,000 people listening to the sound of my voice right now, some of whom might have that thing that they have always wanted to create, whether it's a song or a poem or a watercolor painting or a sculpture or pottery, whatever, doesn't matter. I guarantee that if you think back to a time that you created something that you thought was beautiful, that you may also be remembering a time when you tapped into that joy and that sense of flow that you were experiencing when you made it. And the reason I know that is because of a book I read a few months ago called The Art of, man, I should really look this up. It's a Julia Cameron book. Oh, that's right. It's called The Artist's Way. The Artist's Way. And the idea there, and again, I think I might have talked about this in a recent episode, but I'll talk about it again anyway, is that humans in their natural state are creators. We were born to create. We have this drive in us to create. Everybody somewhere deep inside has this urge to generate an idea and turn it into something that you can see or hear or feel or taste or read or sing or whatever. And I truly believe that because I know I do. And I know when I talk to other artists, other creative people, they experience that same joy that I just talked about, that same sense of flow. And although I have somehow stumbled on a way through, maybe it's through Coach or through this activity inventory, to create time and then protect time to write or to do this podcast or to find other outlets for creativity, which I do have and I try to have. I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of having tapped into that creativity finally. I mean, I'm 43 years old and I wish that I would have done it much sooner. I've always thought that there was a book inside of me and I've always felt that joy, but I've never really committed the way I've committed now. I've never really dug in. I mean, so what I will tell you is I'm about 150, as of me talking right now, I'm about 150 pages in. And I cannot believe when I look back at those 150 pages that I wrote that. It took, a solid chipping away, but more than anything, it took a recognition that it was a worthwhile activity and that there is joy there. There is joy there, and that I owed it to myself to experience it and to make time for it and to protect that time. So, and I know I've been rambling quite a ways here. I guess the takeaway here, if I wish there were one for you, is that you too, folks, have things, creative things, I believe, that give you joy. And I do believe that if you just think about it methodically, maybe through this activity inventory that I described, or maybe, I mean, really what the activity inventory does, when you really step back, is it allows you to identify ways to be creative, or if not creative, to have joy in your entrepreneurial life. But if not through the activity inventory, there are creative things in your life, because I do believe that Julia Cameron had it right. I think humans were made to create, and you too were probably creative once. And maybe you're creative now, but if you're not, you were once and you can be again. And it is simply a matter of committing to it, remembering that there was that time in your life when your creativity gave you joy, whatever that was, whatever that activity was, and find time to do it. And then don't let anyone stomp on that time or steal that time. If you're able to find a good hour for creative activity, try it, protect it, and then do it. And if you can pull it off on at least a weekly basis, before you know it, you'll have 150 pages too. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I mean, hell, for all I know, if you read those 150 pages, you might think it's total crap. And again, I'm more interested for myself in the joy of doing it than I am in anything else. But that joy is there. On to Sharon Tourek. I've told you about her. She's amazing. I hope you enjoy listening to her as much as I enjoyed interviewing her. All right, Sharon Tourek, welcome to the Best Podcast Ever.
Thank you so much. I'm Harriet, really excited to be here.
I was going to say possibly the second best podcast ever because you're busting out a new podcast that may be the best podcast ever, but you can't ever.
I don't think I can top the best podcast
or just,
ever.
If you become the best podcast ever,
I'll have you on. How about that?
That or just like pick a different name.
Sure.
Like greatest podcast ever.
Sure, absolutely. We wouldn't want a trademark dispute between our respective podcasts. That would be bad for two lawyers.
That would get so ugly.
It would.
Yeah.
It'd just be awkward.
Yeah, and I think you'd win because you've been doing trademark law much longer than we have.
I don't know, but I don't want to go toe to toe with a former veteran.
Well, for lots of reasons, we will avoid a trademark infringement war.
I agree.
And just keep it friendly.
I agree.
Sharon.
Yes.
Sharon Tourek, and by the way, I notoriously mispronounce people's names, and I've known you for a while, and I'm still worried that I'm mispronouncing. You say it.
It's Tourek.
Tourek.
Yeah. You know, it's actually my husband's name, and probably for the first 5 years we dated and were together, I wasn't always sure either, but the O and the E can either go O or A, so he's always said Tourek, and so do I.
Yeah, the E, the silent E, it throws people off.
It does.
It throws me off anyway.
It does, yeah.
What's your maiden name?
My maiden name, which I was happy to not have to say all the time and spell, is Sabroglia. It's Italian, S and B and R and O and G and L and I and A. Yeah, it's yeah, it's a mouthful. So.
But it's flowing. It
it's
just
very
rolls
melodic
right off.
if you can pronounce it correctly.
Yeah.
But the consonants together at the beginning with the vowels at the end.
Well, you clearly were destined to live your life having a last name that people guess at. It sounds like.
It sounds like, yeah.
And that's fine.
You're right. It gives me a chance to repeat it very frequently. I was I got coffee with my husband yesterday. My husband's name is very simple, Ed. Actually, his full name is spelled kind of funky, European-like, but he goes by Ed, E-D, very easy. So I ordered his coffee and mine, and I got Sharon with 2 R's, which is wrong.
Interesting.
An egg, like the dairy product that comes out of the chicken. Egg, E-G-G, on his cup. Yeah, I even posted that on Facebook. Yeah,
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guess that the person that this was not the first time they misspelled people's names on coffee cups, and maybe getting disciplined for it at some point in the near future.
We'll see, but we got a lot of fodder out of it on Facebook. A lot of funny comments. So
they should.
A lot of pictures of eggs. A lot of chickens.
They should delegate that responsibility to somebody else at that coffee shop. That's what I think.
You know what? If they're not going to let you pay for your own groceries with a human, then they should just put a keypad in front and have you plug your order in. Right? They're doing it at McDonald's, right?
It seems simple enough.
You can put your own name in.
Sharon, you are the proprietor of a business law firm, true or false?
True.
In tropical Cleveland, Ohio.
Tropical Cleveland, Ohio, yes.
Vacation paradise of the Midwest, as I call it. And here's what I love about it, about your law firm, is that you always hear about those people who, after law school, hung out their own shingle, right? And didn't want to go to work for a steady paycheck and start paying back their student loans with a certainty. And you always hear about those people, but I always wonder how they did. And you are obviously a success story, because you were one of those people. And so tell me, how did you What was that journey like?
Well, I don't think I always did it very well. Let's be honest like that. I think a lot of the decisions I've made in my business career, some of it probably comes from watching, my dad, who is a very hard worker, but always not only had a full-time job, but also a full-time business that he was running. And so I saw him work very hard. And he and my mom really both stressed independence as a value and a virtue. And so I think that combined with some pretty rotten economic circumstances for lawyers just coming into the practice when I graduated from law school. It's not every day when you get sworn in to the Supreme Court in your state and the Chief Justice says, this is the worst worst job market for new lawyers that we've ever seen. We're all kind of looking at each other like, great.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I think I sort of figured out after a couple of years of pounding around and trying to find, that first traditional job that I was going to have to create my own path. And I think that's probably always been the way that I've succeeded the most, to the extent that I've succeeded in anything, is just by trying to figure out my own direction. I guess I'm not somebody who fits into any one mold in particular. And so, yeah. So
you obviously conquered the fear factor of starting your own business. What on a scale of 1 to 10, though, 10 being like paralyzed with fear and 1 being no fear whatsoever, where were you when you hung out your own shingle?
I was probably at a solid 7.
Okay.
I probably would have been more afraid if I wasn't so frustrated at the time at not being able to sort of find that first job that I thought was just going to open all the doors for me and bring in the nice paycheck and give me all the experiences that a new lawyer needed to have to try to sort of figure out how to practice the profession and all that good stuff. And so I was pretty unhappy by the time I decided it was time to figure things out for myself. And so I think that weighed so much on me that I probably wasn't as afraid as I needed to be.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was doing the first time around. I really had no client base, no contacts. I certainly wasn't mature enough to have had the opportunity to do any networking in the traditional sense with potential clients or people who could send clients to me, or I don't come from a big family with lots of people who get in trouble a lot with the law, fortunately. So I didn't have that built-in client base. So yeah, I knew enough to, I guess, ask some good questions fairly quickly. But yeah, that first couple of years was sort of just, renting a furnished office in a suburban location here in Northeast Ohio and getting maybe 1 or 2 cases from the lawyer who I rented space from, and then, trying to meet some people as frequently as I could, calling on some family friends to let them know what I was doing. And I had some training, in a paralegal job that I had at a very large law firm here in town. And so I knew a little bit about how the business of law firms ran. And so I figured a few things out that way. And that was kind of the kernel, too, of figuring out where I would eventually specialize, or focus, I should say. We're not allowed to say specialists.
Right.
In the state of Ohio. And I am not. I have no specialist designation. So let's make that clear.
If you're listening, professional development or professional...
Ohio Bar Association and or Supreme Court. I am not a specialist.
Sharon just cleared it up. But here, so it's interesting because I think it's only other lawyers that really see small law firms as businesses in their own right. I don't think people generally see us as small business owners.
Right.
Right.
I agree with you, and I'd also challenge the first thing that you said, and that is that I don't think a lot of lawyers who own law firms realize that they are running businesses and that their first responsibility is actually to have and maintain a healthy business with a healthy bottom line, or they can't help people. you can't help people or donate your time legally or take that case that, you feel passionate about if you don't have money to pay the bills, and that requires you to run a stable business. So we're all business owners.
I still have not figured it out.
Well, we're all learning, right?
Yeah.
I mean, none of us are there yet, but I think the lawyers who tend to run smaller firms probably get it faster out of necessity and probably learn the fundamentals the hard way or however they learn it. But as much as the law is a profession and is there to do social good and is there to help people, it is, the process of providing a legal service, it's a business. It's a business just like many others.
Yeah. When you started out, and then I want to get into the niche that you have here, which is pretty interesting. So you've got this great quote here that, again, our crack research department has uncovered. It's your father's quote. The best piece of business advice I ever received was, quote, "Success is not about how many times you fall down. It's about how many times you pick yourself up after you fall," unquote. So that, according to the internet, is something that you heard from your dad, yes?
Yeah.
Let's get specific. What comes to mind when you hear that quote now about your first couple of years in your business?
Wow. Yeah, and that's a quote that still resonates with me every single day and that I still think about every single day. So, okay, the first couple of years of being in business, or even the process of trying to start the business or deciding to start the business, I would say a big stumble down for me was I really thought I was going to get like this great job out of law school. That's thing number one. And that just didn't happen for a combination of circumstances. I did really well in law school, but so did a lot of other lawyers who were looking for jobs at the same time. So, okay, that was in the cards for me. So that's a fall down. So what are you going to do about it? Well, going to bank on myself. That's getting back up. You get a couple clients in those early days, and I'm sure you were there at some point or another, Alex, where they're just not a good fit for you. Either the case didn't end up presenting the way it was initially brought to you, or they're a client that doesn't pay their bills, doesn't honor their obligations, or give you the information that you need to best represent them. Or it's just the kind of law that does not light you up whatsoever. And we've all taken some cases like that, I think, in our careers as lawyers. At least most of the lawyers I know have. And so all of those, I think, are mini stumbles. And you get back up and you don't do that again. Or you get more mature and you get firmer about enforcing your boundaries around how you expect a client to behave and and how you run your business. So I would say that was probably my first big stumble is I didn't end up taking the path that I thought I would. And there's a lot of bad ways you could react to that. And the way I chose to react to it was to create my own path. But I would say every time you experience a disappointment professionally or even personally, and how you choose to react to it, how you choose to get back up is going to be a better arbiter of where you sort of end up down the road. Can
you think of a time when you weren't sure if you could get back up?
Wow. Can I think of a time? I can't think of a time when I'm going to be honest, when I was ever completely hopeless about getting back up. I really cannot. I can think of a time where certainly the slump lasted longer than I might have expected, but...
Was that a business slump, just the amount of business coming in the door?
Yeah, the amount of business coming in the door. Whether it's that or whether it's a particular business relationship that you might have that just didn't work out the way you expected it to. And, I'm somebody who really strongly believes in honoring commitments. And I think if I've had I'm sure I've had more than one, probably a number of them, but if I've had, downfalls in my professional career, one of them might be the tendency to stick with a situation long past when I should have probably moved on from it, just out of the old stick-to-itiveness that I was raised to have, or just out of plain stubbornness, or just out of a sense of wanting to make sure that I honored what I thought my responsibility was in that situation. And, and sometimes I've not moved on quickly enough from situations, relationships in business, as I should have.
But those are, you know what? I think about that all the time. And it only is after the benefit of hindsight that you create this narrative that says, oh, I should have gotten out earlier.
Right.
And it's really interesting that you say that, because I was just beating myself up the other day about that exact thing with a in this case, it was a former employee. And at the time, the narrative could go any number of ways. Give this person another chance.
Right.
Everybody's entitled to a second chance. This person is redeemable. Right. If I was in their shoes, Lord knows I've made so many mistakes. I would have loved for somebody to have given me a second chance.
Or it's a failing of me in not being a strong enough leader and bringing them along or training them.
Or there's this other calculus that is like, okay, well, I've invested a lot in this person or in this relationship, and I can't tell the future, but I do know that if I cut the cord, that investment is gone.
Right.
So how much worse would it be if I give him another chance or her another chance to preserve all of this investment I put in?
Right.
But it's so then it turns out not to be a good choice, which you only could know now.
That is so
years
true.
Later,
that is very true. I do. Yeah, you're entirely correct.
Yeah.
And I think it's also so easy to have that perspective. It's always so much easier to see someone else's situation with clear eyes when you could be in the exact same or very similar set of circumstances and not see it for yourself. I've been in countless situations where, I don't know if you've ever participated in mastermind groups, but I've been in a couple of, I am in several of them right now. And you'll sit and listen to someone else sort of process a challenge that they're dealing with, and you're like, what's the problem? A and B and C and D and bam. And you could be going through a very similar situation, or a situation where they're looking at it just as plainly, but you cannot see it for yourself because you're in the middle of it.
I think that the best thing you can do in those situations, which I still don't do as religiously as I should, is bring in objective third parties.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We are never done learning, and we are never done growing. And I am a firm believer that it's your lifelong obligation, just as a human, but particularly if you are an entrepreneur or a business owner, you're never going to be done developing as a leader. So it's your obligation to continue to get that coaching, to continue to do what you need to do to, get yourself further along.
You know what else too? I have, along the same lines, been thinking about the older I get and the more days and months and years under my belt that I get as the owner of a law firm or a business or whatever, is the older I get, the more I start seeing how emotions played a role in my flawed decisions, which is why an objective third party is always a good idea, coach or whatever.
Yeah.
But I read this book. I didn't finish it because I never finish books, but Principles by Ray Dalio.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of this guy?
I haven't.
Ray Dalio is one of the most accurate predictors of the stock market trends.
Okay.
And he was one of the few people that predicted the crash of 2018, I think it, or I'm sorry, 2008, right? Yeah. And then another one in like 2012 or whatever. But this book, Principles, the first half is his biography, and the second half are the rules that he runs his hedge fund by.
Okay.
And I swear half of the rules are about getting to the truth of your own thoughts, the incessant chattering in your own mind, and the things that you hear from other people, which in that world makes, is everything, right? But in every business owner's world is so huge. Getting to the truth through the noise of your own baggage and your own emotions, and that is so important.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that why is such a powerful question. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Simon Sinek is probably going to be a billionaire one of these days. Not only do you start with it, but I think being an effective leader, being an effective counselor as a lawyer, because that's what we really are in the business to do, is to counsel. But and bringing your people along, it's that constant willingness to ask why one more time until it's really uncomfortable, and then you keep going and you ask why some more.
Right.
Why do you think that? Why did that decision lead you there? Why did what that person think mean so much to you? Why did you react that way? It's just the more I do this, the longer, and maybe it's that Socratic method that sort of got beaten into us in law school. I don't know, but it's probably what makes you a really good podcaster, because you learn how to ask why and really listen to what maybe sometimes isn't being said too. I think that's important for any business owner to be able to do.
Yeah. Thank you for the compliment. I think you're crazy, but I appreciate it.
I might be.
There's a guy, I want to say it's Seth Godin or somebody else that I heard on Tim Ferriss's show. He said he's just some Silicon Valley billionaire. In order to decide whether he wants to take on a new project, he asks why 3 times. Why am I doing this? And then, so whatever answer it is, well, why is that important?
Right.
And then whatever the answer to that is, well, why is that important?
Right.
And all 3 levels have to all point to this hell yeah moment. Right. This hell yeah feeling, like this is definitely the thing. Most of us don't. I don't know anybody that drills down those levels of asking why.
No, and let me tell you, I've had to sit through. You and I are in different coaching programs. We've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I am in one that is specific to lawyers growing small entrepreneurial law firms. It's a national group, and I have had to sit through the experience of, and I've experienced it myself too, where I've been in the hot seat, but it's much worse to listen to somebody else go through it. Have to listen to a fellow lawyer in this case, because it's a coaching program for lawyers, explain what kind of law that they practice, why they practice that kind of law. Not only that, but why does it matter? Why does that matter to you specifically? What's happened in your past that makes that sort of value statement about why you do what you do important to you? And go like 6, 7, 8 layers into the onion. It's uncomfortable to watch somebody go through, because I think so much of what we do is just so we're not comfortable always digging that deeply. I include myself in that. I mean, it's I wouldn't want to go through that on a regular basis.
So meaningful though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because I think it gets to the bottom of the stories that we all tell ourselves about why we do what we do. Yeah. And who we spend time with, and why different things matter to us, and why we are triggered to react in certain ways to certain things. So important for lawyers, I think, to understand, because a lot of the motivations that your clients have can be sort of peeled back if you sort of think of it through that lens, I think.
Speaking of why we do what we do, let's talk about what you do.
Yeah.
Okay. Sharon Tourek, what do you do?
So I am the owner of a law firm called Tourek Law that helps marketing and creative services and communications agencies across the country protect their assets and turn their intellectual capital into cash. And what that means is that we help them in the areas of intellectual property law. We help them manage their client contract negotiations, which typically center around the creation and ownership of intellectual property. We help them put freelance networks together, and we help them with social media and influencer marketing compliance. So all the sort of day-to-day things that are marketing specific that a marketing services provider does on a regular basis.
When you walked in here, you were surprised to hear that my crack research department learned that you have filed 406 U.S. trademarks.
Yeah, I really was.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
That's a big number you're
I
putting
have
up.
to tell the team, especially my assistant who takes care of that, who keeps her eye on that docket for us. So yeah, I had no idea.
So I would like to hear briefly about how you got into that niche, because the one thing that I think most of us hear when we become lawyers is specialize, even though we can't really use the word specialize,
right.
but focus, emphasize something,
right.
develop a niche.
Right.
And you did. And I want to hear how that happened.
Okay. Well, I had a pretty strong training background as a paralegal in trademark and copyright law, thanks to the firm that I worked for while I was in law school. And so I was always a little bit unique, even I was hanging my shingle out and sort of hacking my way through starting up a law firm the first time around, that I had the ability to do that kind of work for clients. And I've always loved intellectual property. And the reason I love it is that I think our economy, our society in general, our progress and advancement all hinge on innovation. And so intellectual property law is the way that a lawyer can help an innovator protect their interests and keep them motivated to continue to innovate. So that was, I think, just the baseline. Well, in the process of practicing trademark law, I started getting a lot of clients who were marketing connected. A lot of marketers work on branding projects. They work on renaming or naming things, companies, products, services. So I started to get a lot of, not a lot, but a fair amount of work with marketers, and then more specifically with marketing agencies in the trademark area, which then spread to copyright, helping them with copyright protection issues, because that is big in marketing as well. And I just started getting fascinated by that industry and marketing in general, either on the brand or the agency side. But most of my clients at that point then were agencies. They were regional, Northeast Ohio focused marketing and communications agencies. So I joined was then called the Ad Club in Cleveland, it's now the American Advertising Federation's Cleveland chapter. And started just learning more about their businesses and what makes them tick and how the revenue model worked. And I'm fascinated by it because that is an industry that moves commerce and moves our culture in ways that we don't even think about every day. People who work in marketing help brands achieve business results. They also create art. They create things that resonate in our culture that we don't even think about necessarily as coming from that segment of the economy. There's a reason why we all huddle around the Super Bowl during the commercials, even when we don't care about the game. It's because of the art that's being created there and the cultural conversation that it's submerged in. They create innovative ways for social change to happen. I mean, so much of social change movements are communications based. And so anyway, I just got fascinated by this intersection of all the things that I love that are important to me: entrepreneurship and business, popular culture, art, innovation, and they just all intersect in marketing, communications, and advertising. I also, not for nothing, realized that nobody was helping independent marketing agencies that were small and mid in size with the legal issues that they were facing on a day-to-day basis. And you've probably seen in your practice where if you work with a couple of clients in similar industries over a period of time, you start to pattern spot. Mm-hmm. Well, I was doing it at scale, and I was seeing the same issues, the same patterns. And so it just made sense to intersect my legal experience with an industry where those issues arose and arise a lot. And that's how I got pretty much to where I am now.
In those early days, was it word of mouth? How were you getting your business? Referrals mostly?
Yes. By then, I had sort of figured out that the way, at least in the salad days of building a law firm, that you sort of get the word out about the kind of work that you want to do is by being where the people are that have those kinds of projects. So it was a lot of networking. There wasn't really no content marketing at the time. So I would probably do a presentation here and there, an educational session, speak at a meeting or a conference, a little bit of that. But it was a lot of relationship development regionally. I did manage to get hooked into the American Ad Federation's national network as well. I was in leadership locally in the club here, which is a fantastic. Not everybody realizes what a fantastic chapter of that national association is right here in Cleveland. It's one of the biggest clubs in the country, which is unusual because we're not really considered a top tier sized ad market here in Cleveland, but. So meeting people and talking to them and just being unique in the focus.
Yeah, I suspect it was also good work that you were doing, that people were talking
Thanks.
about.
Well, I hope so. I mean,
well, how much of your business today is from repeat clients?
Quite a bit of it is from repeat clients. And quite a bit of it now is also from people who those clients refer in, which they do comfortably because a lot of them are in different cities. Yeah. So it's not like they're giving up a trade secret by referring business to me.
What I tell young lawyers who are just starting out or older lawyers who are hanging out their own shingle is that the single best marketing you could ever do is to do good work.
Yeah.
Do good work at a fair price, and word spreads. You know, they talk about it. They talk about it with their friends at the bar, at the restaurant. The people who do exceptional work get more business from that work. It helps to have a marketing strategy and to go where the people are.
Right.
But if you don't do good work, all the marketing in the world ain't going to help you.
Well, if you don't do good work, you better have a really, really, really strong funnel because you'll get lots of new leads in, but they won't be repeaters.
They won't stay. That's right.
And what I would say to a new lawyer starting out, or actually anybody starting out in their career, is that you need to spend time. I mean, this requires a little bit of discernment and maturity about what it is that you think you like to do the most, but you need to spend time where your clients and your customers are. And there's two reasons for that. First of all, it helps you walk in their shoes and it makes you better at your job when you understand what their business issues are, what their day-to-day struggles are like, and how they're I'm speaking to the B2B lawyers now, but how do they make their money? What does their business model really look like? Because if you're giving them solutions that aren't practical for them because of the way that their business actually earns money, you're not doing them a huge service all the time. So it makes you better at your craft. And secondly, it makes your work more interesting. It just makes your work more interesting if you are curious about the path your clients are walking. So I think it's a really smart idea to spend time where your clients are. If you're a B2B lawyer, it might be a chamber or on one of those boards. If you're a B2C lawyer, it's where do those customers hang out.
There's another aspect to that, and that is that there are thousands, tens of thousands of lawyers out there, right? So you and I work in a very saturated field, as the Supreme Court Justice told you.
Have you seen the heat map recently for how big the concentration of lawyers in Cleveland, in Northeast Ohio,
is it red hot?
It's crazy. I mean, not naturally, it's smaller than like LA, New York, Boston, but it's a big dot.
Yeah.
I'll have to get it and share it with you one time because and there are historical reasons for that, it turns out, in Cleveland. But anyway, there's tons of us bumping into each other in Northeast Ohio. So
to your point, Sharon, a big reason to know your client's business at a business person's level, not a lawyer's level, is because there's so many of us out there and they could spend their dollar with any of us.
Yeah.
They will spend their dollar more happily with the lawyer who knows them and knows their fears and knows their stressors and their pain points
Yep.
and knows what makes their day.
Yep. And it's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
It's not hard to do. It just takes, you just have to be interested and curious.
Yeah.
And the dirty little secret is a lot of your peers are not bothering.
Right. You're right.
They're just not
100%.
bothering.
100%. So a lot of our listeners are business owners.
Right.
And so they're probably thinking, okay, well, what can a lawyer who primarily represents marketing agencies tell me? And what I think, and I bet you've got your own thoughts on that, but let me set the table and then let you go. If I am a small business owner who creates things, or any business owner, or any C-level executive or manager at a company, and things go from idea to manifestation out into the universe.
Right.
Is the creative process and the creative product something that I or they should be talking to a lawyer like yourself for?
Well, I appreciate the softball. Let me give you the cheat sheet. And this is probably the way that your team handles these situations as well. I think the first thing that every entrepreneurial company needs to realize is that an idea, an unprotected idea or concept, is free to take, it's free to use. That's not infringement, it's not theft, it's not anything other than taking something that's in the ether and putting it into use in commerce. So what does that mean from a practical perspective? That means if you think you have a concept or an idea that you want to turn into a product or a service or something that makes you money, or perhaps it's some proprietary internal thing that you want to do, it's your secret sauce, whatever that might be. Think about how and when you need to protect it and who you need to protect it from. So initially, and I have this conversation with ad agencies all the time, but it is just as relevant to a consulting firm or a widget maker. If you're going to be talking to an outsider about something that you consider private or proprietary, you need a non-disclosure agreement. You need something in writing that is going to protect or, set forth the responsibilities of both parties about the information. So that's sort of your ideas and your concepts. You're probably going to name whatever it is you decide to sell at some point. That involves trademark. So doing due diligence about how you want to name it. Beyond just, is the domain name available, which is the first thing most entrepreneurs go for these days is, can I get the domain name? And if I can, it's a great name for my company. Maybe it is and maybe it's not. So that's the next step, I would say, is you're probably going to name it. And the sooner you think about that and determine availability, the better.
And by the way, that's not just the name of the company. That could be the name of a
product,
process or
your
product.
Service. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. It can be your tagline and your slogan even. And some of that stuff can be protectable not only by trademark, by copyright. So there are a multitude of issues to consider. But so that's step two. Step one, how do I protect my idea, my concept? Step two, am I going to name what it is that I'm selling or the company that I'm going to form to sell it? And what should I be thinking about doing to protect that name? Then third, what is the thing? If the thing is a hard invention, is it something that might be patentable? I don't practice patent law, but I know when I see one, and when I need to call up a really good patent lawyer to refer a client to. If it's not patentable, is it something that we might be able to get copyright protection for? How am I going to make money selling this? And the reason I want to know that when I'm talking to a client is because if one of the ways I want to make money selling it is by having other people sell it for me, maybe I need a license agreement. If I'm going to get somebody else to manufacture it for me, maybe I need a license agreement with those people so that they can't just take my stuff and make it and sell it themselves on the open market. So really, an IP lawyer sort of can take that thread through just about most aspects of a business. Mm-hmm. I just happen to apply it to one industry. But, we have legacy clients in other industries as well that it's just the analysis is just as applicable. So, for your listeners who own companies, those are the questions you want to be thinking about up front and talking with your legal counsel about.
I have clients who come in for me to draft a contract for them or form a company for them. And I know when to say you need an NDA.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, Alex, if I start handing NDAs to anybody I do business with, I'm going to do less business.
Mm-hmm.
And my response to them, and then I want to hear your response, is how much money are you putting into this product? And do you want other people stealing it from you?
Right.
And I also tell them to be strategic. You don't have to give an NDA in every circumstance,
Right.
but there are some that you want to. And are you already protecting it? I bet you can give a much better answer than I can.
No, I mean, I think that the foundation is the same. I deal with this question all the time with our clients are, marketing agencies by and large. And so here's the typical pushback I get from a client or a prospective client or somebody in the audience when I'm speaking at a conference about this. We don't want to ask for an NDA because we think that it sort of sets the relationship off on a bad tone. It makes it seem like we're going into the pitch or the conversation and we don't trust them. Or and we want to look like we're easy to do business with.
Mm-hmm.
We want, my response to that is that those are not good reasons to not have, as a part of your standard operating procedure, asking for an NDA. I'm going to acknowledge that they are frowned upon in certain, and if you're in the entrepreneurship space, if you're looking for venture capital, if you're looking for angel investors, those people who look at deals all day long,
Right.
every day of the week, they pretty much have a policy of they're not interested in signing them because
Right.
they don't want to be put in the position of looking at two
Yep.
concepts or business plans that are too similar to one another and then getting themselves in trouble that way. So, if that's your crowd and you're looking to raise money, you just have to know going in what the risk is that
Right.
you're assuming. But more specifically to clients who push back on the point to me, here's what I tell them. 9 times out of 10, particularly if you're going to be pitching or negotiating with a company that's larger than you are, even if it's a mid-market size company, particularly if it's an enterprise size company, they're going to slide their NDA across the table at you
Right.
without blinking. It's not going to be mutual. It's going to be written in their favor. And you're just going to sign it. So why not come to the table with one that's
Right.
fairly drafted, that protects them and you, that makes you look like you understand the leverage that you have at
Right.
that point, because you'll never have more leverage than you do at that part of the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. And another point about that is, for the folks listening at home that are going to pull an NDA off the internet and just start applying it to everything they do and with everyone they work with.
Right.
It is something that you definitely want to talk to a lawyer about because it can't be overbroad. You
Right.
can't protect things that are already in the public domain. And you have to apply it to something that you're already protecting in other ways, generally.
Right. I agree with you. And I would also add to that it's a perfectly valid business decision to make to go into a conversation and choose to not pursue an NDA. Just understand, and I tell this to the client, I tell this to people who I will give presentations in front of. I'll say the following. I know you're listening politely to everything I'm telling you about NDAs, and you're going to go home and you're going to say, that is crap. I'm not going to sign. We're not going to do it. So that's cool. That's your prerogative. Just know your risks and make it
Right.
it your business decision to forego the protection and just be careful about who you're negotiating with.
That's such a great point, Sharon. Another way of saying it is the way I say it, which is don't muddle your way through the law. Be deliberate.
Right.
Get good advice and then make a call.
Right.
And your call may be to disregard your lawyer's advice, and that's fine because you're a big boy or a big girl.
Right.
But don't just put blinders on and say everything will probably be okay.
Or make a decision from a place of fear or lack of leverage.
Right.
I always tell my client that this is what the law says. So the most conservative advice I can give you is usually some flavor of don't do it. Here is what I know you want to do, and here's the risk you're going to assume if you do it that way. And here's some things you might consider to be a little bit more conservative. Right. So it's your risk to assume. Look, in entrepreneurs, we both probably counsel a lot of people who are in that space are more comfortable with risk assumption.
Yep.
That's fine. Just do it with open eyes and make it a deliberate decision and not one that's either made out of fear because you think you're going to lose an opportunity. Because my experience is you don't for that reason. Or because you feel like it's for whatever reason unwise to ask. And there are other things you can do to protect your assets and your IP during those conversations. Even if you don't have an NDA in place.
Well, and I was just going to say, I think the one line of demarcation between good lawyers and less good lawyers,
less experienced lawyers,
is that the good lawyers will tell you how. Instead of just saying no, this can't be done. Right. I think the good lawyers out there will give you options and will help you get as close to where you want to get as possible, as opposed to just saying, no, this can't be done.
Well, and that's another vote, by the way, for the entrepreneurs out there listening in favor of them working with somebody who is interested in taking the time to learn a little bit about their business and how they're either currently making money or plan to make money. Because once your professional team understands that and sort of you in your risk tolerance a little bit better, the more productive that relationship is going to be. I have plenty of clients who are like, I'm not going to do that. Whether it's an NDA or some other thing. I mean, I know, and here's why you should. And if you're not going to do A, at least do B or C. Yeah. You know,
but you've said your piece, you've given your advice, and they're free to do whatever they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, we just worked on a project for an agency that was doing a social media campaign for a major national brand. It was their client in the food service business, and they wanted to do a social media campaign where they would occasionally reach out to celebrities, and the analysis we did for them was, here are your low risk activities, here are your mid risk activities. And here are the high-risk activities that you should absolutely not do. Here's the risk you're assuming, sort of in the middle of the road. And here are the things that you technically, this is how you're supposed to handle them, but if you don't, they're probably lower risk for you. So,
okay, one more practical advice kind of question.
Oh, okay.
Copyrights.
Yeah.
So we've all got websites, all us business owners, we have websites, and this is a two-parter.
Okay. I should eat my Wheaties before I came. All right.
So part A is, what should the copyright little, circle C thing say at the bottom?
Okay.
Because you see people having, copyright 1997, or whatever. And then you see people saying copyright 2019. And then you see people saying copyright 1997 to 2019. And then they use like names that are not their business's name, or whatever. Yeah. What's the best practice there?
So I think the best practice, and the first thing to know is there's no legally mandated way to do this. But the best practice is either the word copyright or the C in the circle, which is the copyright symbol. The year of creation of the work that you're trying to protect. And sometimes you'll see a range there and what that's supposed to mean. Like if you see 1996 to 2001, what that is supposed to mean is that the original work was created in 96 and it was probably modified one or more times between then and the latest date you see there in the range. If your range is 20 years long, then you probably don't need a range anymore. You should probably just use the later date. But and the reason I think people started doing the range thing in their copyright notices is because they wanted to show as early a date as possible, but they've updated their works. So that's the year of creation So it's the copyright notice, the year of creation, and then the name of the copyright holder, which should match up to whoever owns the rights. Sometimes it's the author, even if the author, ended up conveying their rights to a third party, but it should be whoever owns the rights to the work.
But in most cases, it would be the name of the company whose website it is, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, because in most likely, whoever created the work did so as a work for hire because they were an employee of that company, or they were a third-party contract who should have assigned their rights to it.
So part B of the two-parter is, okay, so now I've created my own content either on my website or in a white paper or in some other form.
Mm-hmm.
When do I need to consult a copyright attorney such as yourself, and what are you going to tell me, and what are you going to do for me?
Well, what I would do first is ask what the essence of the work that is the most important to you, or you think is the most valuable that you want to protect, because most visual works, and I would count the look and feel of a website as a visual work for the purposes of this discussion, have multiple elements to them. There are the photos and the graphics and the actual, the design elements of the work that you're looking at. And then there's content, there's copy and text, right? So what's more important to you? Is it more important that a competitor not mimic the look and feel of your website? So it's the design. Is it really laid out in such a way? Is the navigation unique? Or is your content just so valuable? Are you giving away so much secret sauce as a strategy for business development or whatever that you don't want to see those blog posts or anything similar up on a competitor's website? So those are the questions you want to be thinking about. And the answer is you can protect them both. And whether or not you should, it depends upon how much it matters to you that you see them, imitated in a flattering way elsewhere.
Protect them how?
So protect them with a copyright notice, and then protect them with a U.S. copyright registration. Website is a tricky example for this discussion because websites are fairly dynamic and they get updated so frequently that, by the time you've submitted a copyright application for the look and feel of one, it's probably been different. But you can certainly copyright like a white paper, or if you've put assets up there that contain a lot of rich content, survey results, original, articles, things like that. If you don't want to see those used by other parties without your permission, you own copyright in them automatically from the date of creation. Mm-hmm. So you legally already own the copyright. The question is, should you register them so that if someone else takes them, you have the right to sue for infringement? If you know you're never going to sue anybody for infringement, then whether or not you want to invest in copyright registration is probably an open question.
So you can sue for infringement of an unregistered copywritten.
You can, but only for what's called actual damages, not for statutory damages.
I see.
And in most cases, a copyright lawsuit is not going to be financially fruitful enough for you to want to bother, unless you're going to be able to collect statutory damages and attorney's fees, which is what registration entitles you to.
And then for us law geeks out there, does filing an infringement suit based on a registered copywritten work get you additional procedural advantages, like in terms of jurisdiction or service or anything like that?
No, because you actually have to have a registration in order to have jurisdiction to file. So the problem is what people will do if they haven't registered before the infringement has occurred. They're going to have to register on an expedited basis to actually be able to file an infringement lawsuit. And they'll only be entitled to actual damages in that case and not statutory damages. Whereas if you have a process in your business, in your company, of routinely registering your copyrights. And, once you've done the first, if you need a lawyer to show you how to do the first few, it's pretty easy to engage in self-help with copyright registration. I tell most clients, please don't register your own trademarks. Get some help there. But you can probably, once you get the hang of it, do your own copyright registrations. It's very inexpensive to do. It doesn't take a long time, and entitles you to those statutory damages.
This is where we take a break.
Okay.
And folks at home, listen to this. Hey folks, Alex Gertsburg here. I am CEO of the Gertsburg Law Firm and CoverMySix, and I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I wanted to take a quick second to tell you about something special we're doing at CoverMySix. If you own or run a business, I want you to go to CoverMySix.com to see if you qualify for a no-cost business vulnerability assessment. My business lawyers will meet with you in person, go over your customer contract, your employee handbook, and your other key legal documents, and help you spot any legal minefields that they see. We'll also give you some guidance on how to stop those minefields from blowing up your business. So go to CoverMySix.com to see if you qualify and to sign up. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show. All right, Sharon Tourek. We are back, and I'm going to ask you some lightning round questions. Are you ready for the lightning round?
I don't know. Let me make sure I'm secure in my seat,
Yes.
and I'm ready. All right, go.
All right. So typically our lightning round, it has Molly Gebler sitting across the table from me. So I'm going to ask her questions first.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
All right.
What are you binging entertainment-wise these days?
Oh, my gosh. I can't say I'm binging anything. So I can tell you what I want to binge.
Go.
And that is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I've heard is just so fantastic. And I have not found the time to actually sit down and watch like 3 or 4 in a row so I can sort of get myself immersed in it. But that's something that I have queued up. And I also want to see the documentary, the Netflix documentary on the Fire Festival, which was just a dumpster fire of an influencer marketing.
Yeah, you'd love it.
On a ride, yeah.
It is like watching a slow moving train wreck.
I know, I can't wait.
Yeah, you'll love it. It is for anyone in the marketing industry or involved in it. It is. Since I know you're going to watch it, I'm not going to say anything more about it. But watch that before Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah, everything that could have been done wrong was done wrong. If that doesn't tempt you, I don't know what will.
All right. Well, this is what I'm going to say about it. I want to hear what I found, and I want to hear your opinion about this.
Okay.
Is the manipulation of people's emotions in order to make clearly irrational decisions. Yeah. Is so profoundly done and then described in this documentary. Oh yeah. It is. I'm convinced that you can take the mass marketing and psychological lessons of the Fire Festival and apply them to like genocide and, government propaganda and, any product that is mass marketing.
Anything evil or dark that could be done with messaging and with marketing, I mean, was done or close to it here. I mean, fortunately, the outcome was not as
no one died.
No, I mean, people lost their money. But by all means, I've got that earmarked to
That's
watch
a really
soon.
good one.
Yeah.
My dad he loves that Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. He can't stop talking about it, which means I'm never going to watch it because I can't.
But what if I tell you I like it? Then will you watch it?
I'm still rebelling from my teenage years against my dad. Okay. So if he says it's good, I can't. Yeah. No, that's not true. All right. But I did watch the first episode of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and
What'd you think?
I found it too like Yiddishy.
Okay.
Which some people are
too
really
Yiddishy. Are you allowed to say? You're allowed to say that.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I keep forgetting that I'm part of the class that gets to make Jewish jokes. Yeah. It's like I don't know. I think people really like that about it, but it's not.
Here's why I want to see it. I am fascinated by any depiction of large American cities in the 40s and the 50s. I just think that was just such a, I mean, there of course was an underbelly, there always is, but such a lot of glamour. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall, even in Cleveland in the 1940s and 50s downtown.
I bet you were a Mad Men fan, were you?
Yes.
Of course you were.
Yeah, I mean, just the era of it, the clothes, the colors, the custom. I mean, so much bad stuff, beneath the subtext, especially for professional women. But I love that era, and that's part of what appeals to me about wanting to see that show.
You'll have to let me know.
I will.
Molly's next lightning round question is a perfect day. Fill in this blank. A perfect day for me is.
A perfect day for me is going out for a really good breakfast, then sitting on or near a beach, but with lots of shade because I burn like in 2 seconds, with a super good book for a couple of hours. And then this is not a day that could probably ever happen in reality, but then I have to magically be showered without having to go through the motions of any of that. And then shopping for a couple of hours, and then going out for a really good dinner, and then going to the movies.
You hear that, Ed?
That's a perfect
you got all
day.
That?
Yeah, you got that, Ed?
By the way, I looked at Ed's photography page as an aside. It's fantastic.
He's so talented, isn't
it's
he?
It's really good. What is
I
it?
know. Ed Tourek Photography.
Ed Tourek Photography.
Yeah, just a hobby for him, but he's so talented.
Yeah, there's some really cool pictures up there.
Yeah, he's good.
So Ed is going to make that happen.
That beach mall day happen.
The perfect day happen. That sounds like a pretty good day, actually.
Yeah, doesn't it?
I like it.
Yeah.
A song I never want to hear again is.
A song I never want to hear again is. There's some popular song right now that's about zombies. I freaking hate this song. I think it's called Zombies, and I don't know who sings it, but it is the most obnoxious thing that comes on my radio.
Okay.
Really, it's kind of Nickelback-y sounding, and so it's got that gravelly. It's like somebody, I don't know, rattling chains and crunching on gravel at the same time in my ears.
I'm really glad I don't know that song.
Yeah.
And this is my least favorite of Molly's
questions,
lightning round questions, because when I do know it, then it's in my head.
Yeah, it's an earworm.
And then like for hours. So I'm glad I don't know that one.
The zombie song.
I feel like I'm forgetting at least one more lightning round question for Molly. So I apologize, Molly. I'll think of it later.
Should have been here, Molly.
Yeah, really.
Hope you're enjoying your hot dogs and beer.
At the Tribe game,
At the Tribe game, yeah, it's home opener day right now as we're sitting here.
All right. The Alex Gertsburg lightning round questions are:
yes,
you are stranded on a desert island for a minimum of 3 months. You're shipwrecked. Could be 3 months. Could be the rest of your life. You have no idea.
Okay.
You may bring with you to this desert island any single author's entire bibliography. Who do you bring?
Oh my God. Jane Austen.
Excellent.
Jane Austen.
She'll keep you busy.
Yeah, because she writes strong women, and I think her work is timeless. I think the same issues the women in her stories face, women now still face, just with different clothes and hairdos. So yeah. Good. Yeah.
Same shipwreck, same desert island.
Mm-hmm. I hope I'm bringing sunblock on this trip because I'm gonna fry like.
Or you're finding shade. I don't know.
Okay.
That's a different lightning round question.
Cool. All right. Cool. All right.
You may bring with you any single musician's entire discography. Obviously, there's a record player or something there to play it.
Mm-hmm. Any single musician.
Could be a band,
I'm
or it
gonna
could be a
have
person.
to go with Bon Jovi.
Whoa. That's a first for Best Podcast Ever. I don't think we've heard that one before.
Yeah, I it's because a little bit of pick me up, then there's just a little bit of ballad, some Americana in there. Yeah, it's a bold choice probably, but
it'll make you feel good. It sounds like it'll make you forget that you're on a ship. You're shipwrecked.
Yeah, it'll keep you awake when you probably want to take a nap too. So yeah,
excellent,
yeah.
Excellent. What is the habit or routine that you do on a regular basis from which you have gotten the most mileage?
Oh, these are good questions. What habit have I gotten the most mileage out of? Well, it depends on how you define mileage. I'm going to go with writing personal notes to people.
Ooh.
And I want to say I define mileage in that case by how I feel when I send it. And the bonus is if they tell me they got it. I mean, not 100% of the cases, but I just think so few people do that anymore that that's definitely a habit. I think that I've gotten a lot of mileage out of just in the way it makes me feel for doing it. And I don't do it as often as I would like to be able to do it.
So this is handwritten?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, with a stamp that I put on there myself.
And what are we talking about? Like cards, like letters?
I like to do, occasion cards. I mean, if it's a birthday or something like that. But I like to do a blank note card and write all the pros myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man,
it's a lost art, don't you think?
it really is.
Yeah.
And I know a handful of people, and now I know one more, who do that religiously and have forever. Nancy Santilli, who's a frequent guest on the podcast, she's the superintendent of Kenston Schools.
Okay.
She couldn't possibly have more responsibilities than
Right.
she has. She takes the time every time she's here, and anytime I've met with her just about anything,
Right.
to send me a thank you note.
That's cool.
And I'm like, you've got 1,500 students,
Yeah.
another, however many hundred teachers,
Right.
and thousands of parents, and
What is her habit like? What's her habit hack? How does she make the time to do that?
I have
Did
no
she
idea.
say? No,
I have no idea.
I'd like to talk to her and find out. So when I used to, when I would speak at a conference, I still speak quite a bit, but every single person I met in person there, I would handwrite a note to and say something. I mean, they'd be short notes, but something specific about a conversation we had or something I noticed about them or about their. And I don't have the time for that output right now, but I need to figure out a way to get back to that because I think that, first of all, it just adds to the touch points if you're doing it from a business point of view. Just secondly, and more importantly, from a human point of view, I love to get them. And so to be able to send them. And then I would add, can I add another one to that one?
You can add as many as you'd like.
My favorite thing in the whole world is to buy gifts for people.
Same with Nancy Santilli.
So Christmas
You two-
is like, we have the same love language.
Oh
I
my
think
goodness.
liking to get gifts is.
Yeah.
So Christmas is my Super Bowl because I love to buy that. I get to buy gifts for everybody at the same time. No, I love matching the right person. In the case of cards or notes with the right message, or in the case of gifts with the right thing. So
That's fascinating. I'm on the exact opposite end of that spectrum.
Yeah.
I forget birthdays, and
What does that have to be for a birthday? You could just say thanks for being nice.
my girlfriend and I, early on in our relationship, we sat down and I said, "Listen, there's something you should know about me."
She's like, oh no.
Yeah, like any kind of important thing in someone's life, I have just sort of subconsciously blocked it out of my mind as it's any other day for me, and
Is it that you don't know when they are, or is it that you just don't know? You just don't celebrate them.
I think that I am easily overwhelmed by having to remember even like to follow, because you put birthdays into your calendar or important day anniversaries, whatever. And I think that there's some kind of weird subconscious narrative in my mind that says I will not take orders. I will not, just because I'm
That's so
supposed
interesting
to.
from somebody who was in the military.
I know, right? Maybe it's a backlash against that.
Maybe it is.
Yeah, maybe I'm like, it's PTSD related. Maybe I don't want to take any orders ever again from anyone.
Well, I am nobody's psychologist, so I have no idea, but
we
it
might be
certainly
onto
sounds
something.
like it's something you should look into.
you know what? You might be onto something, because there is, whenever anyone tries to make me feel guilty about something, I'm so repelled in the other direction, you know, and I will almost certainly not do the thing that they're trying to make me feel guilty enough to do. And this is a major, my dad's listening right now. Dad, now you know why I don't come over for dinner sometimes, because you're making me feel guilty about it.
I'll tell you what, here's my philosophy about shame and guilt. They don't work. I know that there are a lot of parents out there would disagree with me, because that's, you know, in their toolkit. No, those they're so powerful, but I don't think they're effective, and so I sort of reject them. But that also sounds like maybe a little bit of an authority thing with you. So maybe you're just being a rebel.
And I could be totally misdiagnosing the whole birthday anniversary thing too.
Or maybe you're blowing. I mean, were they a big deal when you were a kid? Did your family make a big deal out of them?
Yeah.
So maybe it's like a big deal.
I don't know. I think that I often feel like there's only so much bandwidth.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's only so much capacity that I have to react to external things like birthdays or deadlines or whatever. And I just deprioritize all of it. But
Not your kids, though, I'm guessing.
I remember their birthdays.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother.
Okay.
It's a whole nother thing.
Okay.
Then it's a question. All right.
I'll have to come back for another episode.
Yeah,
We'll deconstruct all that.
All right. This is the big one.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you thought you were done. You thought it was over.
I'm afraid now.
This is
What are you gonna ask
the daddy.
me? Okay.
What is an embarrassing thing about yourself that almost no one else knows?
Oh.
And for extra bonus points, if it's something that no one else on the planet knows, you go up to the Hall of Fame. You get a star on the Best.Podcast.Ever Walk of Fame.
What's an embarrassing thing about me that almost nobody knows? Oh. I don't know if this technically counts as nobody knowing, because... So I'll tell you what my biggest challenge is. Maybe that's another way to answer the question.
Could be.
I don't know if this counts. So for me, it's weight. And obviously people know it, because you can look at somebody and tell whether or not they're overweight or not. But I think what most people don't know is the way it sort of impacts you on a day-to-day basis. And I'd never talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it with you here and either. But anybody who has had that lifelong struggle, you know, and I've been thin and I've been heavy and I've been thin and I've been heavy, who bounces up and down like that, the personal battle, it's all mental. Because every person who graduated high school and can read knows how to lose weight. The information is out there for anybody to see. But there's just a subset of people who knowing and doing or knowing and being are two different things. And I sort of fall into that camp. And that's, you know, it's been my lifelong struggle. And so now I put it out there. And what I don't talk about is how I feel about it. And I think a lot of people who are maybe professionally successful are in the same camp. They don't really talk about it, because you focus on the things that you can move the needle on, right, in a good direction.
Yeah.
And I'm not somebody who really believes in spending a lot of time focusing on challenges that maybe, you know, you can't move to such a positive result. So I'm going to go with weight, you know, battling weight.
Yeah. I will tell you that I think that being a professional and an entrepreneur and a grown-up in America has so much self-image in it, right? That is, I think back, I've really been giving this a lot of thought lately. Do you keep a journal?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm not faithful.
I try to write every single day in my journal.
Yeah.
And I have a therapist, so this has been a prominent feature in my discussions with my therapist and my journal lately.
Okay.
I can trace back my most stressful things today.
Yeah.
Right. The things that I fixate on the most.
Yeah.
That I just perseverate on, that I like have OCD about today, I can trace back directly to self-esteem and self-image problems going back to my childhood,
Yeah.
right? Times that I thought somebody was making fun of me, times that I was made fun of. I'm an immigrant, right? So I wasn't born in this country. And so the first, I came over when I was 4, and the first, I don't know, probably 5 to 10 years.
Where are you from?
Moldova.
And did you speak any English when you came
No.
here? Okay, so you learned.
No, I spoke Russian.
Got it. So you had to learn a whole new language
Yeah.
and alphabet,
Yeah.
which is a big deal when you came.
My parents had the thickest accents.
Yeah.
I wore only hand-me-down clothes that we got from the charity.
Yeah.
We never had any money. And the first, and I would say right up until high school, which then contributed to self-image issues in high school, but right up until then, most of my like grade school and junior high school years was spent kind of like trying to fit in and, or at least not stick out like a sore thumb.
Right.
Right. And I can draw a straight line between those feelings of not fitting in and being different and being made fun of to things that today and for the rest and for the last 30 years were the things that bothered me the most and that I fixate on, you know?
So the most important part about what you just told me is that you've drawn the lines. You've connected dots, because I think so many of us have not taken the trouble to connect those dots from how they were formed, you know, as how their self-perception formed from when they were kids to moving forward. And it's not a matter of, you know, blaming your childhood on things. What it is trying to understand your origin story.
Right.
And the why. Again, it comes down to why, right? The why of why you are the way you are today.
Right.
And
why you think the way you think.
yeah, and I can definitely trace back to my origin story why probably this is a lifelong issue for me. And yeah, it comes back to the same things. We all manifest that not feeling of fitting in different ways. We manifest how we react to stress in different ways. For me, I'm super thankful that the way I've manifested has not been something even unhealthier than being, you know, and having a weight issue to deal with, because I think a lot of, especially in our profession, the way a lot of people manifest that stress is with substance abuse or alcohol abuse. I've never had those issues, and I'm grateful for that. And so, you know, and I have good, strong relationships in my life, a long-term, really happy, healthy marriage. And so I choose to focus on those things and not the why of why this has been a constant struggle for me. So that would be my thing.
But to your, and to your point, connecting those dots, super important, or else you're just going through life on autopilot. And B is so difficult.
Oh yeah.
For me personally, it took therapy and a lot of journal writing and a lot of meditation to connect those dots.
It's not something we're really encouraged to do, because I think America is very much a culture of charge forward, and it's a culture of optimism at its heart, and you know, and looking forward, not back, and trying to connect those dots does involve some willingness to spend time looking back. Which, and if what you're looking back at is not pleasant, that's even more challenging to do. But yeah, it's not encouraged. But I do agree with you. It's a healthy exercise for all of us.
I want to thank you for being here, Sharon.
I want to thank you for having me.
That was awesome.
An awesome discussion.
You are working on so many exciting things. You have your own podcast.
I do.
The Innovative Agency Podcast.
Right.
Are we able to find it on different...
You can find it on iTunes. You can find it on Libsyn, Stitcher, I think. It is. So many of the conversations we've had on that podcast are, I think, translatable to entrepreneurship in other industries, but it's geared towards leaders and owners of marketing agencies, and we talk about innovation in marketing and also future-leaning topics. I mean, we've talked about artificial intelligence. We've talked about We've talked about digital marketing and technology and marketing, and a lot of fun conversations. I love doing it. I love the people who I get to talk with as a result of having the podcast.
Yeah. You have a blog, Legal Plus Creative.
Legalandcreative.com.
Legal and Creative.
Right.
Legalandcreative.com.
Right.
There's a plus sign in there. I never know what, do you say
So
plus? Do you say and?
Well, the URL is legalandcreative.com.
Legalandcreative.com.
All spelled out, correct.
And you have this system that you created, this Legal and Creative Agency Protection System.
That is a legal toolkit. It's a sort of a self-serve solution for marketing agencies who need. It's part legal guide, part legal toolkit with templates and things like that.
Good.
Yeah, model documents.
And so folks should go to your website to learn about all that fun stuff, right? And is that legalandcreative.com?
Legalandcreative.com is the firm site, and the agency toolkit is at agencylegalprotection.com.
Excellent. And, we didn't even talk about how involved you are in the local business community and in the, let's see, you're a director, you're on the board of Jumpstart, you're on the board of the National Small Business Association, you're on the board of the Greater Cleveland Partnership. Right. How did we get this far without me asking you a ton of inane questions about?
I don't know, especially since that's how we met.
I know, right?
Well, we went down a path, right?
Dang it! All right. Well, you know what that means? It means you got to come back.
I would love to come back. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was great. This was really good.
Was.
Thank you so much. And folks,
my pleasure.
Folks, here's the thing: if you've listened this far, you've listened over an hour to us talking. And that tells me one of maybe three things. You're my dad.
Or my dad.
Or Sharon's dad. Or Ed Tourek.
Yeah.
Or you love our podcast. Or you love Sharon. And what you ought to do at this point, because you're pot committed at this point, you've already invested an hour plus of your time.
1:15 of your life. Yeah.
Come on. I mean,
you're never going to get that hour back again.
No, it's gone. It's gone forever. But here you are. And so here's what you got to do. You got to do me a favor. You have to do one or more of the following things. Go to iTunes, rate and or subscribe to this podcast. And if you're going to rate, it better be one of those high ratings too.
Absolutely.
Leave like a great comment.
What's the point? It's like an Uber. Why would you rate an Uber unless you're going to give them 4 or 5 stars?
I mean, I'm not saying you got to write this podcast changed my life, but you could. You could if you wanted to.
Sharon knocked it out of the park.
Right.
Get it? It's April 1st.
But I'm just saying you could, right?
Right.
So that's one. You could also go to our Facebook page and like us there. You could go to thebestpodcastever.com and click on subscribe. And if you do one of those things, and then of course, wherever you're listening to us, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, there's a little button there that you can hit, and then boom, now you're in, you're subscribing. And what you get when you do that is you're notified every time
a new episode comes up.
New episode drops. That's right. And you become part of this exclusive club.
Right.
You'll be one of the early subscribers.
Right.
Although it's not early anymore. I think this is episode like 80 something. I think we're in the 80s. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. But you will be one of the cool kids.
Definitely.
So please do that for me.
It's
folks.
Fun to hear other people get put on the hot seat for some of these lightning round questions.
I know. Now you know how they feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sharon, one of the reasons I like doing this podcast is because I have a selfish need to extract information from people smarter than me. And you are, and I've done that. So thank you.
It's been my absolute pleasure, and I learned as much as I taught. So
awesome.
It was an awesome experience. Thank you for having me.
Good. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you next time.